Welcome back to the 13 Ranks of Halloween. I'm Adam J. Well, like the Friday the 13th series, the Nightmare on Elm Street series has been long requested by my fans. I'm very affiliated with this series, so we're finally going to get to it today. They're beautiful. So let's just jump right in and rank all 9 films in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Coming in at number 9, big shock, Freddys Dead, The Final Nightmare. Screw this movie! I have spoken! Some of the entries before this had given Freddy more of a comedic tone, but this is the one that took it about 10 steps too far. Nothing in this movie is scary, nothing about this movie makes any goddamn sense, and nothing in this movie connects back to the previous entries. It just feels like some bizarre Elseworld story, and none of it works. The characters aren't interesting. I have no idea how they roped Yaphet Kotto into this track. Yaphet, my man, you were in Alien. You're better than this. There's Wizard of Oz references, there's weird cameos from Tom Arnold, Roseanne Barr, and Alice Cooper of all people. Alice, just stick to, horror movie soundtracks. You're better off, buddy. The movie tries diving into Freddy's backstory, and none of it is any good. Freddy has a daughter or some shit that no one has ever mentioned until now, and my god, I don't care. This is the one I honestly pretend just doesn't exist. It's the worst movie in the franchise, and one of the worst slashers ever made, if not the worst.
What's with kids today, huh?
Freddys Dead, The Final Nightmare.
At number 8 for me is the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. This is honestly the worst horror remake I've ever seen, and it is a damn shame. Jackie Earle Haley took up the mantle as Freddy this time around, which was a great casting choice. To his credit, he does his best with what he's given. However, the movie doesn't give him much to do. He has maybe 2 original lines in the whole film. Every other spoken line by him is a line spoken by Robert Englund in a previous Nightmare film. So this new Freddy isn't able to have his own identity. The movie insults your intelligence by trying to convince you that Freddy might have been innocent, when the flashbacks prove without a doubt that he couldn't possibly have been innocent. It's a bunch of contrived crap that doesn't work at all. It wastes a really talented cast, including Rooney Mara, Thomas Dekker, and Katie Cassidy, and actually almost made Rooney Mara quit acting. It was that bad a film. I'm sorry guys, I am not revisiting this crap anytime soon.
You have nothing to worry about.
Now from here on out, these are all films that I enjoy, either mildly or immensely. And I know my number 7 pick will be very controversial to some hardcore fans out there, but my pick for number 7 is Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master. I know. Just hear me out. I think that this movie has some genuinely good atmosphere. It's directed very well by Renny Harlin, who I've always been a fan of. Some of the kills in this movie are good, while others are a bit lame in my opinion. And overall, the acting is pretty good. Robert Englund is as enjoyable as always, and I really liked Lisa Wilcox in this movie. My issues with the movie are story issues, mainly how Freddy is not only resurrected, but defeated in the end. Honestly, both are huge letdowns to me. Freddy is literally resurrected in this movie by having a dog piss on his grave. I'm not making a joke, that is literally what happens. He is defeated by looking at himself in the mirror. Okay. And yes, I get the whole idea of the Dream Master rhyme in this movie. I understand this. It just doesn't do it for me. The Dream Warriors from Part 3 are all killed off within the first 30 to 40 minutes, and it feels like such a waste. I mean, I can understand killing Kristen as they couldn't get Patricia Arquette back to play the character. She's replaced by Tuesday Knight in this movie. But killing off all of them feels like wasted potential to me. Especially since the movie gives us a new character to follow, Alice. Wouldn't it have made more sense to have Kristen die and have Kincaid and Joey train Alice to be a Dream Warrior? Or at least something along those lines? I feel like they killed these characters too soon, and the movie just wants us to accept Alice as the new heroine, even though she really hasn't done much to earn that. In addition, the side characters really did nothing for me. With the exception of Dan, who is a decent character, the side characters were just kind of there for the most part. For every cool thing this movie does, it does something lame that just takes it down a notch for me. But then again, this is all my opinion, and I still really enjoyed this movie for what it was. Just what it was couldn't get it any higher on the list, so sorry.
Oui, fresh meat. A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. The Dream Master.
At number 6 for me is Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child. Now, this is the one I feel gets such a bad rap throughout the series, and please don't get me wrong here, I get some of the criticisms. It isn't really that scary. Freddy is really comical in this one, but to be fair, he was every bit as comical in The Dream Master to me. The ending is very weird. Not nonsensical or anything, just very weird. I mean, I understood it, it's just so bizarre. And there's one death scene in particular where Freddy force feeds a beauty queen to death that was just too ridiculous for me. That being said, despite these issues, I think this movie is a bit underrated, and more enjoyable from a story standpoint than The Dream Master. Freddy uses his mother to bring him back this time as he invades the dreams of Alice's unborn child, which is an ingenious idea. The baby is always sleeping while it's being carried to term, so you're always going to be dealing with Freddy in that situation. I like the idea how Freddy can find creative ways to come back. How he came back in this film was a nice precursor to what we would see in Freddy Vs. Jason. I thought it did a nice job expanding the lore of Freddy and Amanda Krueger, which was also brought up in Dream Warriors. What they do reveal about the backstory here and there was definitely enough to keep me invested. In addition, I found some of the side characters to not only be more useful, but just more proactive in general, which is a huge step up from the side characters in Dream Master, who were really just there to die. This also has one of the best death scenes in the series. Dan's motorcycle death is just amazing. He just becomes this, road warrior-esque mutant riding a motorcycle. He's got wires and tubes coming out of him. It's so awesome.
This boy feels the need for speed.
The comic book death that I know a lot of people hate is incredibly silly and over the top, but it's entertaining as hell.
Time to die, you scar-faced limp dick.
Also, I feel like this was the film where Lisa Wilcox's Alice earned her stripes as a dream warrior, as we see her trying to protect her friends, herself, and the unborn child inside of her. In the last film, I felt like the Dream Warriors were killed off too early, and the film just basically said, well, forget those guys, here's your new heroine, love her, damn it. I felt like in this film, Alice earned that love from the audience, as she feels like more of a complete character and heroine this time around.
A Nightmare on Elm Street 5. The Dream Child.
It's a boy!
At number 5 for me is Freddy Vs. Jason. Now again, just talked about this one in the Friday video, so I'm gonna be brief here. This was a movie that fans waited over a decade for, and it paid off big time. We finally got to see two of our favorite icons fighting on screen. But the film also went the extra mile by including a ton of lore from both franchises. The characters range from stock to memorable. All the brawls with Freddy and Jason are gorgeously choreographed. A lot of the deaths are invented. Freddy vs. Jason is just an overall fun experience. It's a modern-day Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, and I love it.
Freddy vs. Jason.
Place your bets.
And number 4 for me is Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. Now, I have a weird history with this one. I remember back in the day when I bought this box set, this is actually the one that I would kind of skip if I would marathon these films, because it didn't really connect to the main storyline. In all honesty, you could just watch 1, go directly to Part 3, and you really wouldn't miss anything from the main story. However, this is slowly but surely becoming one of my favorites of the series, if only for how unique it is. And not to mention, this was before the series took Freddy in a more comedic route. Here, there are genuinely disturbing scenes, particularly in terms of body horror. In this film, we see Freddy actively try to live again through the male protagonist, Jesse. This isn't something he would ever try to do again with another character, I'm guessing mostly because of the backlash of this film, but it is a very interesting concept. As I said earlier, I like all the different ways that Freddy can potentially come back, and seeing him try to be born again through another human being was genuinely terrifying at times. Jesse finds himself mentally scarred and tortured by Freddy, realizing that he's slowly becoming the killer of nightmares. Mark Patton gives a great performance as a kid, riding the fine line between sane and full-blown psychotic. I mean, I will admit that his screams can get a little annoying at times, but it really helps to sell the fear that his character is feeling.
I need you, Jesse. We got special work to do here, you and me. You've got the body. I've got the brain.
Mark Patton and Kim Myers have great chemistry in the film, especially towards the end. I really liked the relationship between Jesse and Lisa. A lot of the death scenes are memorable. The one where Freddy cuts himself out of Jesse's body and kills his friend is one of the best scenes in the franchise. Now, there is one scene here that a lot of fans despise. And even Wes Craven looked at it and went, what the hell? And that's the scene where Freddy actually reveals himself at the barbecue towards the end. Yes, under normal circumstances, he would not attack like this in the real world. He's more protected in his dream world, and he's scarier when he attacks in your dreams. So I can see where people would be put off by this. However, I think this works for this film because of what Freddy is trying to do in this film. He's trying to live again. He's trying to have the best of both worlds. It makes the film stand on its own, in my opinion. I love the main characters, I like a few of the side characters, I love the kills, I love the atmosphere. Honestly, if I hate anything about this film, it's the dumbass fake out at the end with the bus. There's also a gym teacher character who just comes off as kinda strange. I was pleased when he died, I'm not gonna lie. Oh, and since the little sister in this movie is played by Christy Clark, allow me to make the obvious reference.
I'm not gonna lose Austin.
You already have, Sammy. And I win.
Knock that bitch out! Carrie's just gonna break Austin's heart down the line. I just know it! Overall, I feel Freddy's Revenge has some problems, but it's nowhere near as bad as others have made it out to be, and I think if you go in with an open mind, you might find yourself enjoying it.
You've got the body. I've got the brain.
Freddy's Revenge.
And number 3 for me, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This was Wes Craven's long-awaited return to the franchise, and instead of continuing where the abomination that was Freddys Dead left off, he opted for something completely new. This film takes place in the real world, where we are technically not dealing with Freddy, but rather an evil force who has taken the form of Freddy. The entity is haunting Heather Langenkamp, the actress who played Nancy in the first film, and her son Dylan. With the help of Wes Craven, who is writing the movie as it's happening, which is still an incredibly strange concept to me, Heather must become Nancy one last time to defeat this evil entity and save her son. The movie knows how to play with your head and your expectations. There's a sense of dread and tension throughout the film as it builds to its climax. New Nightmare made its audience do something they hadn't had to do in a long time. Think! It's not so much a slasher film as much as it is a psychological descent into madness. You're made to use your brain to figure out how much of this is the supernatural entity and how much of it is just in Heather's head. And Wes Craven went about this in very interesting ways. The way this movie explores horror films and the effects that they have on the people who make them is just fascinating to me. Ultimately, that's what makes this movie so great. The psychological aspects are all perfectly handled, and it messes with the minds of its audience every bit as it messes with the minds of the characters. Robert Englund plays Freddy and himself in this film, and God is this new Freddy scary as hell. He has not looked this good or been this menacing since the original. The boots, the trench coat, the oversized fedora, everything about him is just beastly. He is more visually interesting in this film than he has ever been in the past. The actors, the scares, the tension, the atmosphere, Freddy's incredible design, and the psychological elements all help to make New Nightmare a unique and brilliant animal in its own right. And number 2 for me is probably what's in the number 1 spot for most of you. Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. This is the film that's often seen as the best in the series by a lot of fans, and I can definitely see why. I absolutely love this movie. I cannot give this sequel enough praise. The Dream Warriors is not only the most creative Nightmare sequel, canon-wise, it's also the most fun. Wes Craven came back to help with the writing of this film, and it clearly shows. While this would be our first glimpse at a comedic Freddy, he's still quite frightening in this one. This is really the only one where there was that perfect balance between comedic Freddy and scary Freddy. The comedy just kind of took over more and more as the films went on. This film brings back Nancy from the first film, once again played by Heather Langenkamp, trying to help kids in a mental hospital who have encountered Freddy, particularly Kristen, played by Patricia Arquette. Arquette and Langenkamp have great chemistry throughout the film and play off each other beautifully. It was brilliant to have Nancy come back and be a mentor to all those new potential Freddy victims, who teaches them how to control their dreams and fight back against Freddy. It's such a cool concept that not only pays respect to the original, but also takes the rules of the dream world that Freddy inhabits to a whole new level. The kills are outstanding. My absolute favorite Freddy kill is in this film.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Welcome to prime time, bitch.
Oh yes, that's good murder. The scenes of these characters fighting in the dream world are all unique and well handled, as are the fights in the real world. There's a part in this movie where some of the characters have to do battle with Freddy's bones like it's Army of Darkness. Yeah, it's bizarre, but it's cool as shit. I'll allow it. The score, the kills, the characters, and even Freddy's one-liners, which never miss a beat throughout the film, all help to make The Dream Warriors the best sequel in this franchise.
A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Freddy's just around the corner.
Yes, and again, at number one for me, shocking absolutely none of you, is the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Sorry, guys. I consider this the best slasher movie ever made, so yeah. Not only is this the best slasher film ever made, not only is it the most unique slasher film ever made, I would go as far as to say that this was Wes Craven's best movie by a clear mile. And considering this man's filmography, I can't say that lightly. This is one of those horror films that just gets everything perfect. The casting is perfect, the pacing is perfect, the atmosphere, the characters, the kills, all of it perfect. It is true horror in its purest form. The premise is original and thought-provoking, and given that most of the slasher flicks of the 80s were just random slice-and-dice flicks, that is saying a lot. It was a slasher film that, for its time, dared to be something new and creative. Robert Englund's first go-around as Freddy Krueger is both scary and iconic. Freddy is witty and absolutely frightening. Heather Langenkamp as Nancy is wonderful. Then again, she's wonderful in any movie where she portrays this character. Another great performance is Amanda Weiss as Tina, which leads me into the audience expectations that this film brilliantly plays with. For the first part of the movie, it seems to be following Tina and her story, with Nancy being more of a side character. But taking a page out of Psycho's playbook, Wes actually makes Tina not the main protagonist, but rather the first victim in an iconic, disturbing, and utterly gory death scene. And from then on out, it's following Nancy as she tries to piece everything together and take on Freddy herself, while also trying to keep the rest of her friends off the chopping block. It's a solid turnaround that you just don't see coming. Now, you could make the argument that the Dream Master was trying to do the same thing by killing off Kristen early and focusing more on Alice. And I would agree with you. I do think that that's what that film was indeed going for, and I give it props for that. However, where Tina's death was very surprising, Kristen's death was pretty much obvious from the start. I never saw the turnaround with Tina and Nancy coming the first time I saw it. In The Dream Master, I saw the turnaround with Kristen and Alice coming within the first 15 minutes. So I can appreciate the effort in that film, but honestly, it does not have the same effect or impact as it does here. Also, since I know everyone will kill me if I don't mention it, Johnny Depp made his first acting appearance in this film and has one of the best death scenes in the movie. In fact, all of the death scenes are fantastic. You wouldn't see these deaths in most modern-day slashers because most of the people directing them lack what Wes Craven had. Vision and testicles, with great atmosphere, compelling characters, ballsy visuals, scares that are earned, and a sense of dread and unease throughout. A Nightmare on Elm Street was Wes Craven's horror masterpiece. And as far as I'm concerned, that man never topped this film.
From Wes Craven, director of The Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left, a new masterpiece in fantasy terror, Nightmare on Elm Street.
So that's the end of this list. Now, the next list is going to be for Final Destination. However, after that, I've gotten a lot of requests to review a certain series. Because a new entry in the series just came out. So I'm going to give you guys a choice for the ranking that's going to come after Final Destination. Okay, would you rather see a ranking of the Underworld series? Or would you rather see a ranking of the Terminator series? I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is going to be, but you know what? I'm going to leave it up to you guys. So just let me know. That being said, how would you rank the Nightmare on Elm Street series? Please let me know in the comments, and please subscribe if you want to see more.